We're in the buckwheat again. This is 7 weeks. 7 weeks since the main part of it was sown. We've had some cold, wet weather where I think the coolest was 5 degrees. I looked at the logger this morning, it was 5 degrees. And the daytime maxes have been in those low 20s with a few inches of rain. So this is the row that was that I had to double plant. It opens up into a V, and I ran 2 separate rows with the seeder up and back, but it narrows down to 1 row at the other end of the row. So we can see here we've got a reasonable stand. Still too thin to do any shading out, but I'm hoping that it will still pull some nutrient out of the ground and bring it up to the surface, and then as the plants rot down, make that available to the grapevines. I'll cultivate this, and then we'll roll the topsoil over under the vines when we form the beds again, and then cultivate this ground again after we've done the pruning and the slashing. And I'll probably put something that fixes nitrogen and try and build it up as a permanent cover crop, a permanent sod sort of planting in here, depending on how that works with demand for irrigation. But the interesting thing about this section is when we get down to this point, so further down it waterlogs a little bit, but just here we had a quite even overlap where the 4 rows on one side, the 4 rows on the other side, and we've ended up with 8 rows nicely spaced. And it is a little bit more dense, but still not enough to suppress the weeds. You can still see some of the weeds coming through. So, and part of that might be that we've just moved out of the ideal growing conditions for it. Still a lot of bees in it, which is good. And hopefully this will continue the flower for a little while until we get the first frost, which it's always a bit hard to forecast when we're going to get the first frosts, but they could still be a number of weeks away. Hopefully they are. I've got what looks like some of the seeds have been pollinated, and we've got what looks like will be there we go, what looks like will be seeds of set. So that classic 3-sided buckwheat seed shape. So I'm hoping, and these ones are quite fat. We'll pick one off and just see if there's any milk in it. So that's quite fat, and if we squeeze it, yeah, there's quite a developed kernel inside that. So these have set seed. So a couple of weeks and these will probably be mature, and they'll drop in on the ground in place, and that'll build some soil seed reserve up, and hopefully the seed's hard enough, durable enough, that it'll be here, it'll be after the frost that some of it germinates. I may need to slash the top off while the apricot trees are in flower, and then after that it can pretty much look after itself. The grapevines are getting close to pruning. So again, we had some cold weather that's starting to knock the growth back on them. Wood's maturing off nicely. I can't see much in the way of green canes. Can't see any green canes, which is good. It's going to be a tough prune this year, I think, to get these back into shape, but they are looking good. Some of them are looking quite good for this area here. we only need one good shoot, that one maybe, this one. All these others need to be cut off. So if we can get 1 or 2 good shoots off of each spur area, all that can be cleaned up, and we've got a nice strong one there, all that cleaned up, a nice strong one there. We'll get these vines back into good condition. I think I'll be able to do a herbicide run. Set the herbicide spray back just to 1 set of nozzles, keep it tucked in right under the vines so we don't spray drift onto the buckwheat and burn them off. You can see quite a few tracks. I've got wild pigs coming in from all the water. Not doing any real problems at the moment. They will spin the sprinkler heads off and do a little bit of damage that way, but I think I might have to get some traps in to catch those and sort that out before we get into spring. Yep, so see, looking along the row, a reasonable stand. Could be a little bit thicker. I have sourced the seed disc I was missing. So I have sourced the seed disc I was missing. I was able to get that from Sutton Ag in California and used a forwarding company to send it down to Australia. So that was pretty good. That was about $20 Australian and about $22 Australian to send it down to me. So I was happy with that. Okay.